of office people, we'll have a quorum. That's the only thing that will hold us up.
Okay.
Paula, are you doing well?
I am. I'm doing fine. Thanks.
Terrific. And are you ready to step in if my voice falters?
You bet.
Excellent.
I've got the agenda set right here, so.
I was counting on that. Whoop.
Yes.
Judge Vignal has emptied his chair.
Hey, there's one of our newest members, Faye Crawshaw. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to figure out how to sign in.
Go to chat. Go down to the bottom of your screen to chat and put your name.
Okay.
Everybody needs to do that, as a matter of fact.
Dorothy.
What did you want us to do?
Sign in.
Open your chat, and the first thing you'll see is it says to everyone,
Yeah.
and you could just put your first and last name, or say hello, I'm here, and put your name. That way we don't have to have a roll call. Liz, you don't have to.
I'm not doing that. No.
Oh, did we take that out of the script? You don't have to do that.
I don't know. I'm not doing it.
And welcome to Dorothy Marchand. Dorothy, smiling.
Here's Dorothy.
Do you see her? She's
I
our
see her.
liaison with the state office.
We're
Welcome,
delighted
Dorothy.
to have you. Just delighted.
Thank you. I'm going to leave my mute on. I have 4 dogs in the house.
Well, we
Great.
appreciate that. Mine quieted down a little bit. So anyway, well, folks, I think it is 5:30 and it's time to start. And because we have such a full agenda, we really need to do this. And we, of course, have to have our quorum before we can vote on anything, but we'll check on that as we go along.
Just a minute.
So welcome, everyone. We're delighted here, and we're getting started. Welcome to the 76th annual meeting of the League of Women Voters of Corpus Christi. I'm Ann Stewart, and it's been my pleasure to be president of this organization for the last 2 years. Now, the past 14 months have been a little challenging, not only for organizations like the League, but for our whole communities and state and nation, even the world. The good news is that we are all still standing and looking forward to better days. Today's meeting officially marks the close of the 2020-2021 year and gets the League on track for the upcoming year, which begins June 1st. Several business items on the agenda require your vote, and so to help you keep up with those business items, that you were sent copies of all that, of course, earlier this week, and so you have a background, and we hope you have downloaded and printed as for your source for tonight's meeting. So here we go. Throughout the meeting, we'll direct you to the appropriate page in the workbook in case you want to follow along. And again, thanks so much for being here today and participating in our second virtual annual meeting via the Zoom platform. Now, we have to establish a quorum. So, Anel, what kind of numbers do you have present for us?
I see 30 participants, one of which, Dorothy Marchand, I know is not a member, so that gives us 29.
Which gives us more than enough to conduct business.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you so much. So those of you, Anel, do you want to tell people how to sign in if they haven't?
All right.
Please, an update.
Okay. If you have not done so already, would you please mute yourself? And you do that, you go down to the bottom of the screen, and when the little, oh gosh, it's recording. Okay. When your little bottom menu pops up, hit mute. And please keep yourself muted until everybody is through with their presentation and until and whether or not they request comments or suggestions. And then please go, if you're just now getting in, please go to the same little menu at the bottom and hit the chat button. And please sign in your first and last name. We need the quorum, and we need to be able to show that we had our quorum at our meeting, and our chat is downloadable once we're finished with the meeting.
Great. Our secretary, Liz Riggle, will appreciate having all this information for her official meeting record as well. So we appreciate your cooperation with this. Our bylaws require 1/5 of the membership to be present for the meeting. And our membership services vice president told us that we have 112 members right now, and we need 23 in attendance so for us to begin the meeting. So we have those, and we're moving ahead. Now, an explanation of electronic meeting work. Let me call on Annelle again, and she's going to review the meeting protocols. Annelle?
The meeting protocols, okay. For Zoom?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
that's what Chris wrote down here.
Okay.
You bet. She's our
That was-
director.
Okay, I think that was more or less what I just did, was to ask people to mute and keep yourself muted at all times during the meeting unless somebody calls on you specifically or asks for questions or comments. And then the other would be that keeps noise out of the background, doorbells, TVs, etc., dogs. And that's it. The closed captioning has come on, and that is at the bottom of your screen. So if you would like, if you you can follow the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen, and that's all I have.
Okay, so let's go on to proposed rules. And on page 2 of your workbook is what you might want to be looking at if you're following along here. Just take a look at those rules quickly. We need a motion and a second to accept the rules. Is there a motion?
I so move.
And name is?
Peggy Duran.
Peggy Duran. And do we have a second?
Linda Snyder seconds.
Linda Snyder seconds. Those in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed, no. And any abstentions? Okay, and so we've adopted the rules. Terrific. And let's move along. Let's see. Here we go. Our next item of business is the nominating committee report, election of board members, and our installation. So we'll go back to Peggy Duran and ask her to bring that report forward for us. Peggy?
Thank you, Ann. It was my honor to serve as chair of the 2021 nominating committee with members Annelle Neal, Christy Stockman, Mary Sherwood, Catherine Oler, and Paula Brighton. Tonight we present a single slate of officers, and they have all agreed to serve if elected. The following individuals are nominated to serve 2-year terms for 2021 and through 2023. For President, Catherine Oler. For Vice President of Voter Services, Paula Brighton. For Treasurer, Annelle Neal. For Director of Website and Social Media, Debbie Noble. For At-Large Director, Alice Hawkins. The following individuals are nominated to serve 1-year terms for 2021 through 2022. Vice President of Member Services, Sylvia Campos. For Director of Media Communications, Chris Garcia. For Chair of the Nominating Committee, Teresa Carrillo. For members of the Nominating Committee, Sally Ferris and Judy Telge. committee also wants to note that 2 officers currently serving, Julie Rogers as Vice President of Program and Elizabeth Riggle as Secretary, will complete their 2nd year of service and will serve through May of 2022. Madam President, this concludes the nominating committee's report.
Well, thank you, Peggy, for your committee's work in presenting this outstanding slate of officers. Now, our bylaws say that we may take nominations from the floor at this time, but we must have permission of the one being nominated. And if there are no nominations from the floor, we will call for one motion to adopt this slate by acclamation. Are there any other nominations for any of these offices? All right, hearing none, we'll move right on. Is there a motion to accept this slate of officers by acclamation? There's somebody out there who understands.
Yeah, we moved.
There we are. Dr. Duran moves that this slate of officers be accepted. And
So
now
moved.
for,
Second.
there we are. All right. And Sue Williams has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right. Those in favor, aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed? And anyone not voting? If you want to speak up? All right. And our slate of officers is elected to serve for the next year. Was there a question? All right, let's move on then. Thank you all so much for accepting those responsibilities and moving forward. The officers we've had the last 2 years have been outstanding, just terrific to work with. They've been a great team and move forward diligently. So we're delighted to have you move in. You've got some high standards and some of the same people to help along if you're new to the system. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to everyone for voting for us, or for them. Oh, good. Now, so Judge Vinales, we have this slate of officers who've been elected. So I'd like to turn the meeting over to you for installing those newly elected officers. They will assume their positions June 1.
Thank you, Madam President. Will the newly elected officers please raise your right hand so that I can see that you're taking the oath? And after I administer the oath to you, will each of you say and answer, I will or we will? As an incoming officer, will you serve to the best of your ability and work your voices that can be heard? I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Will you serve to the best of your ability and work as a team to accomplish all league activities and business? Will you continue to promote the league vision of informed voters voting and actively participate in government? Will you work to grow the membership with special emphasis on reaching younger members who will be future leaders, and advocate and agitate in whatever ways you can to engage voters and defend democracy? If you're willing to do that, then please answer, we will.
We will.
We will.
Wonderful. Then all of you are now sworn in and will take office as Ann stated.
June 1. And folks, thank you again so much for accepting these responsibilities and moving forward. All right, and Judge Vinales, again, we're delighted to have you with us this year as usual. You add so much to our program.
Thank you. If I can add just one little note.
Surely.
Peggy's been trying to log in and something's going on with her computer. She's right here. And whoops. And but she's gonna try to log in, but she'll be here on screen pretty soon.
Okay, that's delightful. And we're glad she's here. Julie, are you ready? Julie, are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
I've yet to master unmuting myself digitally. People might prefer that some other ways. I don't know.
Julie, let's tell everybody who you are, because some haven't been able to get acquainted with you yet. Julie is our Vice President for Program. She's had a very, very active year, and she's looking forward to another one coming up. She's one of the ones who is continuing on for her second year, and her agenda is full. Julie, you're on.
That's great. Thank you. I want to thank you all. I have had a great year, and the nominating committee, I want to acknowledge them. They've done such a good job last year and this year. Peggy Duran's a superstar. Thank you, Peggy. She nominated me, and I am so thankful that I've had this year to be able to work with the league and to keep moving us forward. And it was extra special since we celebrate our 100th anniversary. And what it taught me was that there's a reason we've been around 100 years. And we should really be celebrating that. We're going into our 101st. And one of the reasons we have been able to is because of our programs and our advocacy and our voter services and the way we're structured. And I think we've totally demonstrated that throughout our history. This is our 76th year, and I'm just so thankful to everyone. So I do want to know, we've got a wonderful keynote speaker tonight. Her name is Sana Rykhoff, and she could be on, but she's been teaching classes today. Are you here, Dr. Rykhoff?
Yes, I'm here already.
Terrific. Terrific.
Wonderful. This is even better because we get more time with you. Thank goodness. You all should have seen her bio in our wonderful workbook. It is on page 3. And if you haven't had time to read it beforehand, I'm sure most of us have. I've told Dr. Rykhoff that we're all voracious learners. You'll want to afterward. She's often featured on KIII News because she's a professor in political science at TAMUC. Because of this, she's a social science researcher specializing in political science and social and organizational psychology. She's caught my eye the whole time, but I want to tell you, in October 2020, she was on KIII and she was beaming, and she said, "Election time. It's election time. These are my holidays." How lucky we are to have her here tonight. And if it's all right with everyone and you, Dr. Rykhoff, I think we should go ahead and get started. That way we'd be able to have more time with you afterward. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well,
it's a different holiday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie, for that wonderful introduction. Yes, elections are my holidays. It's the highlight of the year. Not because everything is ideal, but because everything is so interesting. And as political psychologist, I am focused on how people think, how they process information, but also how they feel, and how that ultimately translates into their thoughts and attitudes towards politics, and how that translates into behavior. And I've been working at LWV-CC for 2 years now, so I'm relatively still new to Corpus Christi. Before that, I lived in Canada for 2 years. I lived in Portland, Oregon. I lived in Washington State, so very much the Pacific Northwest. And before that, I actually lived in the Netherlands. That's where I grew up. That's where my wonderful accent comes from. And I might butcher my pronunciation a little bit more tonight because, as Julie already mentioned, I've been teaching all day. Currently, we're in Maymester, and Maymester is this madness where we go through an entire semester, 15 weeks of classes within 2 weeks. So 4 hours lecture every day, and yes, it's it's Maymester madness. I have prepared a talk tonight on fake news. And actually, I'm coming to fake news, to that notion at the very end of my speech or presentation, because I'm trying to place it in a much larger context. And if I'm not mistaken, I should be able to share my screen. So because I've prepared some visuals for everyone as well. Share. And if somebody can just confirm that this is indeed shared with the group. Okay, thank you. See the thumbs up here. Perfect. Well, when I was thinking about this specific talk, I also wanted to have a sort of a catchy title. And in today's media's landscape, it is sometimes very hard to find truth or to find facts. And I thought that the comparison of finding a needle in a haystack was well fitting, because usually a haystack is very large, especially compared to a needle. And nowadays our media landscape is also very, very large, and there's a lot to go through on a daily basis. And then I think that the additional difficulty with finding facts and finding truth in today's media landscape is that when we are looking for a needle, we know what it looks like. When we're looking for facts and we're looking for truth, especially when it comes to political news, we don't always know what it looks like. So I'd like to give a presentation on the current situation of the American public, what we know about politics, how we are divided, the reasons for this, and then ultimately, what can we do about it? So hopefully I leave you with a little bit of advice and sort of a toolkit of how to overcome these obstacles. Starting very much at the foundation. When we discuss the media and the press, there are often four main roles mentioned that the media has in a democracy. It is the reporter of objective fact. And in our Constitution, especially in the First Amendment, the freedom of the press is warranted because it is deemed as a necessary inclusion, necessary part of democracy. If we as people want to cast a vote for our leaders, we at least need to know something about these leaders and something about what is going on in the country. The press can provide that. They can educate that. They can educate us. Now, the press also has a role as a watchdog in order to make sure that we, again, as people, get proper news, and objective news. The press can actually work as a filter and as a gatekeeper of what kind of information comes to us. And so it's a neutral adversary between people with their own political opinions and politicians with their political opinions. And of course, especially nowadays with our social media environment, the press and the role of the media also functions as a socialization tool. Sometimes journalists can be a public advocate for specific policies, but more the media as a platform itself can really function as an open forum where we connect with one another and where we can share our information. And the fourth role of the media is also to legitimize the government, to legitimize power, to legitimize those who have power. And we refer to this as the role of the media to be a propagandist. And this doesn't mean that they are allowed to censor somebody or to actually provide propaganda, because usually we have some negative connotations with that kind of term. But it is really the role to give our authorities legitimacy, to make sure that we are actually living in a representative democracy. So how does the United States actually function, and especially the media in the United States? Going beyond the debate of how to measure freedom and how to measure press freedom, the World Press Freedom Index establishes an objective set of measures and lists every country, at least 180 of all countries. And in 2021, the United States of America actually ranked at place 44. And that's actually not great, right? Place 44 as us, as America, as the beacon of freedom and the beacon of democracy and liberty. 44th is not really a great place. To give you an indication of the comparative countries, especially the top 10, are Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark. Those Scandinavian countries do well on most indexes when it comes to freedom. Then Costa Rica, then the Netherlands, Jamaica, New Zealand, and Switzerland. Those countries make up the top 10. And again, the United States at place 44 is not really, I think, where most people don't want to see the United States. So why is this the case? Well, it is a little bit upon us, the people, where we get our news, but of course, it's also what kind of news is provided to us. And this is still giving you a little bit more information about what our media landscape looks like. And I know that I'm going to present a lot of numbers. They're all as an indication of giving you an idea what exactly we're talking about when I say on average or in the majority. The Pew Research Center studies American politics and communication and media frequently, and they do this on the basis of surveys. So they have a very large group of participants that answers questions, and they make sure that that group is large enough and is inclusive enough so that it reflects public opinion over everybody in the United States. So the numbers that they produce are representative to the nation. In 2020, their survey showed that a large majority of Americans get their news on digital devices. And now this doesn't seem as surprising. We know that we are all on our smartphones, computers, tablets daily. We now have this virtual meeting as well, right? The technology is really important. But it is the first survey that showed that our digital devices are now becoming a more important source of our news than television. Up to 2016, TV was still the #1 source of information for Americans, and this has changed now. And then we can then ask ourselves, do we really get news? When we are online, most of the people still actually look at news websites. So where we were able to get our news and information on the TV before, most of us actually now look at TV broadcasts, but then provided on the internet, or a digital newspaper, or we listen to NPR through our smartphones. This is a little bit optimistic. But when we are breaking it down by age, we see that especially young Americans really rely on social media for their news. So these graphs here are showing the numbers or the percentages of adults who get their news often from news websites or apps. Those are in the majority, especially among the older generations, whether they search for news, or whether they listen to podcasts. And then circled here, the 42% of adults between 18 and 29 years of age, they get often their news from social media. And sure, in social media, we also share links to other news websites. but often we share things that we don't really know the content of. It's a funny headline, or the summary is very catchy, and we don't necessarily check the source or check whether this is factual news, whether this is opinion-based, who produced it, etc. To give you another example, 26% of US adults get their news mainly from YouTube. Now, YouTube is not an official journalist platform. So YouTube is not known for producing news or producing facts. And most independent channels on YouTube are actually providing more negativity and more conspiracies than other like news-owned channels on YouTube. Because KIII, for instance, also sometimes puts their videos on YouTube so that it is accessible for people. But what we are also facing are those channels on YouTube that are not news in itself. And so this is creating that haystack already, right? We have so many options to find our news, and it's hard to detect whether we actually receive news or not. This might create a very uninformed public. Now, this is not new. Right? The percentage of citizens, of American citizens that are misinformed on typical major political issues has never been zero. There's always been a good part of the population that has been misinformed. But according to this estimation done by Dr. Patterson, a scholar in American politics, who shared his data with me, this has actually doubled in the last 20 and 40 years since he tracked the percentage of citizens that are misinformed on typical major issues. And so these are issues like the economy, healthcare, national security, welfare. And we are now living in a state where a third of citizens are misinformed on those issues. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are conspiracy believers or that they have specific opinions, but it does mean that people don't know what's going on. Going deeper into the haystack, what do people actually believe? And how are opinions shaped? Again, when we compare the United States with other countries on the public's misperceptions about politics and society, studies asked people to respond to 28 factual questions. So these are questions like, who is the current president? Who is the Speaker of the House? How are Supreme Court justices appointed? But also more mundane questions about politics itself, like who can you cast a vote for? And overall, we see that even compared to Sweden, to have that example often from Scandinavia, that 60% of people have some misperceptions about politics and society. So overall, people are not very knowledgeable. But then the USA still reaches that level to 90%. And so we are faced with a population that doesn't really get their news, and the news that they receive is often not factually correct. So, now, alarming. And I think that's also the reason why I was asked to talk about this, because yeah, we like to think that we are informed as a public and that we can make good decisions, especially when it comes to voting. But this paints a really bleak picture, right? It's can we really speak of political knowledge or informed or following news when we see these figures. And I'm gonna pull you a little bit deeper with me into that haystack, because the next slide is not gonna be very much more hopeful. Some examples of recent factual claims. So these are not opinion-based, right? These are claims of fact. For instance, Donald Trump faked having COVID-19 in order to win sympathy votes. Another claim, voting counting machines overcounted the Biden vote. Another recent claim, Joe Biden is mentally impaired. All these claims are shared widely on media platforms. And so another factual claim, if re-elected, Donald Trump plans to eliminate Social Security and Medicare. Or the claim that Dr. Fauci funded a lab in Wuhan to help develop the coronavirus. A claim about the CDC manipulating numbers to exaggerate the number of deaths from COVID-19. And then the last one, the claim that President Trump went to a hospital last year after suffering a stroke. Now, all these factual claims are false. They're not truth. They're still a claim of fact, but they are all false. However, many people think that they are true. Actually, the percentage of people saying that the statement is true, talking about when Trump will be re-elected, he will cut Social Security, 48% of people, almost half, think that this is a true statement. Also, close to half of people think that Biden is mentally impaired. They think that this is fact. The one claim that I didn't even include in the list of examples is the claim that Vice President Harris is not a citizen. A quarter of Americans believes that Harris is not a citizen. 42% believes that the CDC faked COVID. And this is not a question of how likely do you think this might be possible? Like, no, the question is this fact or not? Is this truth or not? And none of these are truth, but they are believed by millions. And of course, this is that bottom of the haystack, right? We are now sinking deep into these beliefs in false statements, things that we think are fact, but actually aren't. Now, before I continue, I'd like to give some proper definitions of what we are dealing with here, because sometimes they're used interchangeably, and you know, as a scientist, it's always good to really lay that foundation to say, this is what we're talking about. In American media, we often receive misinformation. Misinformation is information that is false, but it's not necessarily intended to be false. So, for instance, the claim that the CDC exaggerated the number of COVID deaths in order to push through some policies. It's false information, but it's still held and spread to a high degree. But that may not have necessarily been intended to be spread or intended to be spread as false. Disinformation is the more harmful kind of that false information because it's intended to mislead. And so when a highly regarded journalist or a highly regarded media source or a highly regarded politician spreads false information with the intent to mislead people, then this is disinformation. misinformation happens all the time. This can be because of somebody who puts their opinion or an interpretation on the facts. Then it makes us believe that something is B rather than A, and this was just an accident. But disinformation is a much bigger problem, because that is spread with the intent to actually mislead people. And this often looks like traditional news media, and this often is presented with the presumed association of the editorial processes. So people see it as if it went through all the steps that truth has to go through, and it doesn't have that. Now then we have false and fabricated news. False and fabricated news are intentionally false stories created for profit. And so this is also disinformation, but the goal of spreading this is to create profit. Most of the time, we refer to these as clickbait. When you're on your social media, you see this headline, like, that's interesting. For instance, the Pope endorses Donald Trump. Like, wow, that's quite a statement, right? Let's click on that to read the story. And instead of being led to that story, you might get just a short paragraph, but you are viewing other content as well that is beneficial to the advertiser of that content. And so this is created for profit. It's created to capture your attention and disguised as something that may be news, but the only thing is to get you to click on it and to provide profit for the advertiser. And then there is fake news. Now, fake news is not a thing. It is a political term. When we hear the word fake news, when people refer to fake news, what they're actually trying to say is disinformation. Fake news is a term that is being made popular by President Trump. And as such, as a scholar, we are not discussing fake news and whether it exists or not, or whether it is or not, because the term already has such a political attachment to it. It's so loaded that when we discuss anything under the disguise of fake news, people are no longer able to listen to the information that is presented about that. That's why I didn't title my talk here and that had anything to do with fake news, because I am talking and informing you about misinformation and disinformation and fabricated news. And I'm staying away from fake news because it's a loaded term. It is something that is not an objective thing. It has its own associations, right? It's that loaded term. Here is a screenshot of the Washington Post. Breaking news. Depending on the crisis or ending the crisis, Trump hastily departs the White House. We see some context here. We see a picture of President Trump. This is dated May 1st, 2019. We can sign in on the website. We can actually become a member of the website. And I know this is always difficult to do in a Zoom meeting, but think for yourself whether this is real, a real post of the Washington Post, or whether this is not real. It comes across as very real. The letter of the Washington Post, the letter type that it uses, looks very similar. The URL kind of sounds like the Washington Post. They have that slogan, democracy awakens in action. It has all the features of the Washington Post. But this is completely fake. This is this is fabricated. Because the actual slogan of the Washington Post is democracy dies in darkness. Right? Really establishing that freedom of the press. But for somebody who doesn't come across the news that often or doesn't read the Washington Post on a regular basis, this really looks like the Washington Post. It is presented as actually the newspaper to the detail with all the clickable links at the top, even saying like you can just subscribe to it. And so this is the extent to which people go to produce false information, to produce that fabricated news. It is completely fake. Now another example of this type of false and fabricated news for profit can be found in satirical news. I'm not sure if you're familiar with The Onion. They often show headlines as if it is news, but it's really meant to be satirical. And when they first started, people were really upset because they said, like, this is not news. This cannot be true. Like, it is meant to be satire. It's meant to be entertainment. And now most people know that The Onion actually is not a true press and not a true journalistic attempt of bringing news. But then when it is presented as such as the Washington Post under the name of an actual existing newspaper and a really well-established one as well, it becomes again much more difficult to determine whether this is fake or not, or whether this is fabricated or not. It is so difficult to not use the term fake because it's so catchy, right? It's so direct as well. Now, how did we get there? How actually did we come into this situation where it's hard to find truth, it's hard to find fact, and it is difficult to know what we can trust and what we cannot trust? There are three main forces and causes to this particular landscape that we have right now. First of all, media regulations, and I will go a little bit deeper into that in a minute. Then how news is framed, how the news is presented, and how we as people perceive it as well, how we associate certain things with one another. And then the third strong force, especially in the United States, is the extent to which we are polarized politically nowadays. Ultimately, all this leads to a decline of trust in the media. Trust in politics was already pretty low, but that's still, it's kind of holding stable at a very, very low level. It's, I wonder if we can go any lower. But the trust in the media has definitely declined over most recent decades. So those media regulations, we used to live in an environment, well, I kind of didn't live in that environment, to be honest. This is before my time, born in the 1980s. But, you know, Americans used to live in a low choice environment, low media choice environment. We didn't have that many TV channels. Not many options, you know, the internet not widely used or even made available to the public. There were radio channels, but people didn't have that much choice for news. Currently, we are actually living in a very high choice media environment. And on the one hand, this is a good thing. You know, choice indicates freedom, choice indicates options. And so we're not just stuck with three options. And if we don't agree with those options, or if we don't like those options, there's nothing that we can go to. No, actually, we are now living in a high choice media society where everybody can find what they please. And this is exactly the problem. We are able to find what pleases us, and we are able to just stick with that as well. Some regulations have contributed to this. In 1987, the Fairness Doctrine was eliminated, and this doctrine required broadcast licensees to treat opposing sides fairly. So the broadcasting licensees had to include public programming, and when they would present a topic or a particular viewpoint that had political connotations, they had to present the opposing side as well. After 1987, station owners didn't have to do this anymore. And it gave them freedom to air programming of their choosing. So this is where we see that political talk shows on the radio became very popular. Partisan media was increasing. But overall, deregulation of the media and providing media owners to own multiple media outlets also resulted into these giant media bosses that owned multiple stations and multiple papers and multiple radio stations overall. Fox was established in 1996, and that was established as a sort of a conservative alternative. Instead of having liberal news, whatever that may entail, now there was a conservative alternative. And as a consultant, a Republican political person was hired. CNN established as the news network, and the network that would only give news. MSNBC started in 1996 as a competitor to CNN as well, just like Fox did, but shifted in 2005 to become the liberal alternative to Fox. And so now we have these giant media providers and news providers that are providing us with partisan news. So if I am a Republican, all I need to do is go to Fox, because there they present the news in a way that I like to hear it. So we can selectively expose ourselves to the news and the information that we want to hear. And we can also, our brains function in a way that we selectively remember these things that we agree with as well. And this is shown again by the Pew Research Center, that when people say that they are inclined to be a Republican or to associate with the Republican Party, they watch Fox News. Democrats overwhelmingly watch MSNBC. Now, CNN is not completely objective either, and also attracts much more Democrats than Republicans, but all three of these sources provide partisan news. So these are not the sources that you should go to. You should go to a different source that actually provides that objective fact. But what people are hesitant, why people are hesitant to do so, has to do with how our brain functions and how we process information. And that's where framing of the news comes in. We have, especially when we have a stronger political view, we are more likely to view the news as biased, and we're also more likely to select the news that confirms our existing beliefs, because we think that what we know is truth. And so we think we can identify with information that is biased. And we can think that we can identify news that is biased against our own side. And so because we have partisan beliefs, because we have certain identities that we already associate with, like partisanship, we think that we are very able to detect media bias. And this might not be the fault of the journalist, because Fox News is well known to be the conservative provider of news, and MSNBC is well known to be the liberal provider of news. But it's also on how our brain functions. And actually 74%, so 3/4 of US adults think that news organizations tend to favor one side when covering political and social issues. And so we all think that any news organization already has a media bias. But if we agree with this, with the information, then we think it's biased. Then we think that it's not biased. If we disagree with the information, then we think it's biased. So it depends on where we stand and whether we can confirm our own existing beliefs already. And as I mentioned, this is where framing comes in. Framing refers to how words, images, phrases, and how news is presented. It gives us a way to interpret specific ideas. You can think of an actual picture, an actual painting. If we would put that in a Baroque style frame, it gives us maybe a sense of sophistication, tradition. This is probably old. But if we put that very same picture and that very same painting in a stainless steel metal frame or iron frame, then it gives us a very different impression. And so how we present the news, what type of colors even, or what type of language is used, what type of mood it is set in, is impacting our way that we process that information. This can go as far as when it's presented, when facts are presented in a way that it is becoming a threat to our own group, we are more likely to think that it is not actually fact. It's like, well, it feels uneasy with us and we feel conflicted about it. And so we are less likely to see it as objective truth. I'm looking at my time here. I am, as you hopefully you can tell, I am pretty passionate about these things, and I'm not nearly at the end of my talk. So I'm gonna skip the next slide and dive into some real world examples already about framing. So the news here, this individual won a university grant, and both are from Fox News. One is from Fox News Latino, that presents, in a rare move, the university grants the scholarship to an undocumented student. Presenting a fact, yes, with some potentially political claims in there, but when we look at the sort of the main Fox News channel, it is presented as money for illegals. Now that definitely has a partisan slant to it. And then the next one is an example. It's a cartoon, but it really shows how the media focuses on specific events. When it comes to protests, and this is a cartoon made by an Italian artist. When it comes to protests, on the left is what we see, what we don't see, but what is actually happening. On the right is what the media focuses on. This is really linked to the Black Lives Matter movement. By far, the majority of protest is peaceful, but we focus on that one individual or that one tiny group that is actually making a ruckus, right? Causing conflict, causing violence, causing things to be destroyed. And so it comes across for us that that is what's happening, while we don't see the other side. This, of course, results in a decline of trust in the media, right? Journalists, when we ask people, do journalists act in the best interest of the public? People think, yeah, maybe, because less than half of people think that actually the journalists act in line with the best interest of the public. Thinking about whether journalists have very ethical standards or high ethical standards. Overall, we Americans don't think that journalists have ethical standards. because we get so much information thrown at us that we are not able to actually determine what is fact and what is not. This picture of with the quote from Abraham Lincoln is, of course, a great example of that. Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. These quotes are often shared by people as well, like this person said that, and ultimately creating that misinformation. Now, politicians are to blame as well. Misinformation comes mainly from elites. When elites persistently make incorrect claims, studies show that politicians are sometimes fabricating news, but often when we talk about political issues, they are interpreting that issue in a false manner, maybe without the intent to actually spread false information, but it colors our perception of the truth. And so politicians are to blame as well. It's not just the media reporting on that. And in fact, actually, the media is mostly objectively reporting what politicians say. But when politicians spread misinformation, then it's what the media reports as well. This has everything to do with political polarization that we experience today. Currently, we live in heightened polarized society. When compared to a couple of decades ago, the median Democrat and the median Republican, especially when it comes to the elite, have polarized. We've seen the elite become more extreme, more conservative and more liberal, and both sides are guilty of that. Now, this is usually not new, and we know that this is the case, but ultimately this reflects on us and what we believe to be true as well. When we ask people how we think about partisans of the other group, we used to think like, oh, we don't like them. Nowadays, we really, really hate them. On a feeling thermometer, when we are asking people, do we rate members of the other party as warm or cold? A majority of Democrats rate Republicans as very, very cold. And a majority of Republicans rate Democrats as very cold. So it's no longer a matter of we have a difference of opinion, that's okay, but it's like, I really do not like you and we cannot get along. And we invite all information that we receive through this lens of partisanship. We use shortcuts to make sense of the world. We use cues from our elites to make sense of the world. We are actually motivated to find information that already confirms our belief, because life is difficult to begin with. And if we have to make sense of every single piece of information that comes to us, that is exhausting. Sometimes students ask me, like, why is studying so tiring? It's like, it is a full-time job because your brain is at work. Every single day, you're challenged to criticize what you think you know, and your initial beliefs are challenged, and you have to think about that. And that is exhausting. And so if we can escape that, we will escape that. And we're all guilty of that. And so we actively have to seek out other sources that we don't agree with to come to that truth, to find that needle. Now, why should we care? Right? Why should we care about this? Of course, it is nice to know truth, but it has very strong implications ultimately to the point of the functioning of our democracy. If we have the notion that there's no such thing as truth, And especially with this whole notion of fabricated news, with the decline in trust in the media, when people are convinced that, you know what, I'm not going to listen to the news anymore because I just cannot figure out what is truth. Then ultimately we are ending in a state of disorientation. We are ending in upending the system. We cannot compromise, and ultimately the country becomes impossible to govern. And this may sound overly dramatic, but it really is that case. If people cannot compromise on anything, we find ourselves to the very core in gridlock with one another. And we are already there. We have this notion of truthiness. You know, truth is based on the intuition or on the perception of individuals. The thing that science is no longer trusted, that even science deals with truthiness, that it's just a matter of the opinion of scientists. And this is getting us into very scary places. So what can we do? Finally, maybe some hope, right? Maybe some tools of what we can do. We can hold political leaders accountable for when they are lying. But we actually don't detect it when they are lying because we don't really hear it when they are lying. We just think that they are confirming our pre-existing beliefs. And actually, when we are voting, our vote is usually not based on truth anyway. Emotions play a role. And we're not like, well, this person lied 3 times, this person lied 1 time. I'm going with the least amount of lies. So we could get our information from reliable sources, definitely. But many of us prefer those sources that confirm what we know already. And so what is reliable, what we deem to be reliable, is the source that agrees with us or that we agree with. And then finally, we could hold ourselves higher. We could hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard. And yes, of course, this is the goal. And this is also the goal of my talk in the next slide, where I try to provide you with some tools to hold yourself accountable to a higher standard. It is tough though, because even when we know all these things, it's really, really tough not to fall into that trap of confirmation bias and feeling good and not putting in that much effort. So what can you do? Always consider the source of the story. Does it ring a bell? Is it familiar? Does it have a long time existence already? Not saying that what the Washington Post or the New York Times or Fox News or MSNBC, they have a long time existence, they're familiar. Not saying that that's always truth, but it's more likely to be truth than whatever news platform pops up tomorrow. In addition, consider how you got the story. Was it shared by one of your friends? That's great, but your friends are probably already agreeing on what you believe as well. That's why you're friends. That's why you get along. And so that might not be the best source of your story, right? Did you go and search for that story? Did you actually find the original story, or was it just a summary from your friend? Then consider, are there any other news outlets reporting the same story? If you find yourself adhering to a statement that you heard somewhere one time, that's not really reliable. If you Google it, right, and see it pop up at multiple long existing news sources, you get a better idea of what is truth. Then read the story. Actually read it. Go beyond that headline. Go beyond that catchy phrase. What are the actual facts reported in that story? And there are some red flags when there's poor grammar, when things are stated in all caps, when there are many typos, many explanation marks, when there is like a Gmail address for an author. Most respectful journalists have actually an email address with that news platform itself. Check the date of the story, check the visuals, because sometimes the visuals are grabbed from a different site and have nothing to do with that actual story. And then finally, how strongly do you respond to the story? Trust your gut. If you are super excited or super anxious or super angry with a particular story, you might want to check that story 3 times over, because those severe emotional responses are usually not based on fact, but based on interpretation. So really kind of seek out those dry, boring, factual claims. Those are usually the best ones to consider. And I shared the following with everybody in advance. When you go to the website of Advantis Media, they are frequently updating their media bias report. And I know this is way too busy to actually provide a good overview of what news to listen to. The more to the top and the more to the center, that is the news that you want to follow. That is reporting original fact and is has a lack of any partisan bias. The more you go to the bottom, the more it contains misinformation, disinformation, and a stronger bias, a stronger political bias. And so CNN here already is not doing a really good job. It's a major news outlet, but probably not the one that you want to follow. And on the next slide, I'm zooming in on those sources that you really should listen to. AP, NPR, The Hill, Fortune. Those are the global news podcasts. Those are the sources that you can rely. And funny thing, the Weather Channel. You can trust the Weather Channel. Of course, it doesn't give us much political information, but at least we can trust the weather still. So that's a good thing. Yeah, type in advantismedia.com and play around. You can also see how they score this, how they actually decide what has bias and what is less reliable. But CNBC, PBS, ABC, NPR, those are good sources to go into when you are really looking for that needle, when you're really looking for that truth. Now, I already took the liberty to talk much longer than I was told to talk, that I was allowed to talk. So my apologies for going over time and taking that liberty. I hope I provided context and a little bit of tools as well to make sense of it all, because it's a really, really difficult thing to do. If you have any other questions, always feel free to contact me. I love talking about this stuff. If you give a scientist or an academic the floor, good, you have a hard time shutting them up, as I already show now. So feel free to send me an email. And thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for giving me this platform to share this information with you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Rykoff. I wish we had more time, and I have a feeling everyone else does. And you did provide resources before. They were posted through our social media, and we'll keep posting them. And I have a feeling people will still have questions. We just don't have time for them tonight. So perhaps we could, you've been amazing. Everyone has to know that Dr. Rykoff has not only presented amazingly, but she's communicated with me for about 4 to 5 months to make sure this happens. So I don't want to impose something on you, but I have a feeling if we have questions that she will keep communicating with us, and we could, you know, publish it in our voter and on our social media. Would that be all right with you?
Absolutely. I am scrolling through the chat, and I see that there were some questions indeed. I think I addressed the recommendation for how best and to get actual news ultimately. College students, oh my goodness, yeah, they get their message from social media. And I'm teaching a class on media and politics in the summer, and it doesn't fill up. And I'm like, people, this is interesting. This is amazing to learn about. It's an uphill battle, but I am still optimistic that that we can win this battle, especially with providing media literacy tools to young people. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. We
Feel
are
free to follow
too.
up with me. I can also share you the slides, Julie, so that you can provide them to the people that were on here tonight.
Wonderful. And we'll have this on our YouTube channel and on our social media, and we will stay in touch. For me, you totally made me aware of why, as the League, we're nonpartisan and we believe in facts. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And with that note, you're welcome to join us for the rest of the meeting. But I am going to turn this over to our president, Ann Stewart. Thank you so much.
Okay, where's Ann?
Anne, unmute yourself. We can see you.
I tell you, that unmuting is really hard. I don't know. We've been blessed this year by having a flight director, Anel Neal, is also our treasurer. Anel, could you unmute Ann?
Hold on, and Ann, you can just press space.
I'm trying.
There you go. You got it.
Oh, I'm in.
Yep.
Paula?
Yep, you're in.
Are you hearing me now?
Yep.
All right, thanks. So nobody heard me say, let me repeat it. We loved having you, and this was so important. It was an important topic, important information. And thank you so much for putting us onto your schedule so we could share the information. And Paula, thank you for getting me back on track. I had no idea I was disconnected again. What is a leader to do? Okay, well, let's move on with our annual meeting here. And the minutes of the 75th annual meeting appear on pages 4 and 5 of your workbook. These minutes were written by then Secretary Rebecca Huerta and approved by the League Board. And so now we need the members to look at them and offer your approval, and we'll get them back to you. So is there a motion to approve the minutes by the membership?
So move. Peggy
Right.
Bagnale.
Excellent, and it's nice to see you in yourself. That's great.
I'll
And this is-
second.
Paula
I'll
is
second.
seconding.
Yep, Paula.
And is there any discussion? Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Raul, are you voting twice? I saw 2 hand motions there. Okay.
Yes, Sally? It looked like Sally either raised her hand late or raised it as a no.
Well, the majority are saying they approve, so the motion carries, and thank you all very much. All right, moving along. Financial report. So Anil, I guess that brings us back to you, our treasurer. Anil's coming in as treasurer this time. Is Anil
Okay,
with-
I'm
Oh, there
here.
you are. Okay, good.
I'm here, and I'm going to try to share my screen. I was having difficulty with that earlier. And it's gone again. Let's leave it. Let me see. Okay.
What else do? But it's all in our workbook if
it is. It is.
Page 6.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
The notes we have here are that the board accepted the report
There it
last
is.
month.
Okay.
And it was published in the Voter. Go ahead.
Lost you.
Okay. Come on. Do what we did earlier. Okay. I give up. Go to your workbook. I'm not going to mess with this and waste time. We are on page 9 of the Voter, which means I also don't have access to the script that I wrote, so we're winging it. But I know this is everybody's favorite part of the presentation.
I also put a link to the workbook in the chat in case anybody doesn't have it in front of them.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for latecomers, I'd like to reiterate one more time. If you came into the meeting late, please go into the chat and write your first and last name so that we are able to show that you attended the meeting. Okay, to our May 1, 2020 through April 30, 2021, that is our financial year. We started the year of May 1, 2020 with $9,628.33. We had an income of $10,497.87. We had expenses totaling $8,462.38, which left us a balance at the end of April 30th as $11,663.82. So we came out with a profit. There are just a few things that might need explaining, and I'd kind of like to ask you, since it's so hard to see everybody on the screen, if you have a chat, if you have a question, would you put it in chat, and I will go in and check that as soon as I'm done. The member dues are what we receive from you, the members. We have the individual members, which make up the primary number of our membership. We have household members, which are people who live in the same household. And I apologize, I've been kind of sick all week from my voice. We have Friends of the League, which is a $30 membership, and it gives you rights to everything except voting in a meeting like this, or if you were to attend a board meeting. And just while we've got so many people on the screen, did y'all know that you are all welcome to come to our board meetings? Debbie posts the Zoom information on the website prior to. It is the first Thursday at 4 o'clock of every month. And so anyone is always welcome to come to our board meetings. Then you see a large amount in income, $3,551.96. That is from fundraising events that we did hold. A large portion of that is being held in escrow, and it will be in our budget presentation, which comes after me. The expenses, Sandra, or our membership VP, those are our largest expenses because we have to pay dues to the United States League of Women Voters and the State of Texas League of Women Voters. Let's see. And I think that's all, unless anybody has any questions. I'm going to try and keep this short. Let's see if they have one question, or is that somebody? Nope.
Nope.
That's a thank you. Thank you very much. So I am going to introduce Mary Kay Pont. Mary Kay is a former league treasurer. She also does treasury work in other organizations that she works for. And she was the chairperson for our proposed budget for 2021 and 2022. So I am going to turn that over to her unless anybody has questions. Oh, there, hold on, just one more. Nope, another thank you. Thank you. Y'all are so cool. Okay, there you go.
Okay, well, I'm Mary Kay Fantz. Thank you, Anel, for the intro. And so for the proposed budget committee, first, let's know who was on the committee. Alice Upshaw Hawkins, Elizabeth Riggle, Sally Ferris, of course, Anel, who did tons of the legwork, like finding out the updated price for lunches for Del Mar College if we meet normally in like face-to-face like we used to and stuff like that. And anyway, she did a lot of research, like PO box rental went up and things like that. And then also Chris Garcia kept herself open to be the major consultant that she always is on everything. And her wisdom and expertise was also very helpful. So in fact, I believe she was the chair last year and probably the year before, and way back when I was treasurer, she helped consult then. And so she always knows how to look at things in a perspective that we need. So I don't know that you'll actually see this on the screen. I think we're not, but you look in your workbook, and actually, because the financial report is there from this last year, you can see what the categories for the budget were last year, and then how they've been modified if you look to the left of that page for the proposed budget this coming year. Most of the categories are the same. Some of the line items had some increase or some decrease or stayed the same, but the way that we propose amounts for each line item is we look at, really kind of go back a couple of years and what we did spend this last year, and then what we think things will be like the next year. And of course, things were crazy with COVID stuff, and some of the numbers we came up with for this next year have to do with what we think will happen as far as possibly if we go back to normal with our monthly luncheon meetings, or there's more activities going on face to face. So on the income side, we make the estimates on how many members we think we'll keep or gain, whether they're sustainers, friends of the league. And so we have those amounts as the $5,875, $600 for sustainers gifts, $150 for friends of the league. The monthly luncheon price increased, so we increased what we would have normally set aside for monthly lunches. We've increased that to $14.30. Of course, the annual meeting last year and this year, $0 spent because we're right here on Zoom. And special events was fundraising events, and we've changed the line item to be called special events, and it has increased to $800. The community support and contributions, increased that to $1,000 for income. That's what we expect. Club Express is a whole nother thing with the website, and Debbie Nobles is the expert on that. So if there end up being questions on Club Express at the end, we'll hand it over to her, because that involves website, like how you can check everything through it, if it happens, or exactly what month that is going to happen. I think the last I heard, it was kind of maybe unclear. Maybe it's a June thing, but we'll get back to that and let Debbie have the floor for Club Express. So the advertising the voter, $500, and we have now the 101st Women's Equality Day celebration, and we have a large amount there for income. And we also, when we go down to expenses, you'll see we also expect that we might spend a lot for that also. But that gives us a total income in our proposed budget of $19,055. Okay, so in the expenses, as Anel previously stated, we have to pay dues to the state and we have to pay dues to the nation. And those amounts are set. So based on what we think our membership is, or our membership, we pay dues based on what our membership really is. But because what we think it's going to be is in our proposed budget, that's how we also came up with the amounts that we believe we're going to be sending to the state and to the nation. Anyone who pays for anything through Square, PayPal, anything online, there's a fee. And so the credit card fees, we actually lowered it to $150 because it wasn't not that much. It wasn't as much as we thought would be spent last year. So it lowered to $150. The monthly luncheons, once again, there's an increase because Del Mar prices increased. Nothing for our annual meeting today. Special events, we have 500. Community support, participation, outreach, 900. Well, there we go. Expenses for Club Express, which is the same as in the income, because anyway, we used to pay about 500 to California for the website, I think, or I think it was 500, could have been 600. And then now things are in the mode of changing, and Debbie, once again, is the expert on that. So we'll get back to that. Voter services publications, we lowered that a little to 1,600. The voter registration events, 200. Printing, 400. Electronic meetings, now that we increased because we've tended to have more electronic meetings for stuff. And so that's 420. The website maintenance and upgrade, 600. We'll see what happens. Debbie's smiling a lot. We'll see, because she's the guru there. So I can't wait to hear from her. The administrative section, postage, supplies, like all of that kind of stuff, stayed the same at 300. The PO box rental went up from 134 to 188. Leadership training, we increased some to 500. And the Equality Day celebration has a large amount, $5,546. And we now have changed the line item to program advocacy for 300, whereas previous proposed budget, we called it lead study. Well, now we called it a general program or advocacy. So our total expenses we're expecting for next year, $19,055, which if you look at the total income and total expenses, that'll give us a balanced budget of 0, which is what we strive for. And then there is some sub notes, and this is the amount that's in escrow. There was money given by different people for the Women's Equality Day event celebration. And that money came not just from League members, but also from other organizations. And some people gave who are members of several organizations that donated. So this money is not part of our League of Women Voters budget, but it's like a separate amount to handle that spring event. And those donations are documented and are kept separate from our budget for that particular event. And then we also have some donations to the membership fund, $90 total, 30 from this last year, $60 that have already come in this May. And that can go to help anyone who might need help with their membership, new students or whomever. So now it's time to, first of all, if you have any questions, I guess the method is ask them in chat. And second of all, Debbie, if you would like to go through the Club Express summary, you're welcome to.
Sure. So as you know, we used to have our website through California, and I think it costs more. It was like $500 or $600 a year. They switched to a new platform, so we switched with them, and I put it off to the last possible minute. I did it last year, literally a year ago now. So we actually owe them right now. We owe them $400 for this year, and we're behind paying it because I was kind of putting it off, but I think we're just going to have to pay it. So we're going to have to pay for this year with them, but it's less than it used to be. And then Club Express is, it's going to cost us a little over $900 to implement it, but we get reimbursed. So we have to pay that, but then we get reimbursed by the state of Texas League. They have grants to pay for that. And then it costs $24 a month, and it pays monthly instead of one lump fee after that. And we also don't have to pay for the first year. The state will reimburse us for that. So that's all good. However, as far as the timing goes, I'm still trying to figure that out. I was on a Club Express Zoom this morning, and it's kind of chaotic. There's a lot of people all trying to do it at once. I don't know. I mean, they have some templates together.
and I decided since we have to pay this $400 for Milo anyway, I'm not in a huge rush because we have to have our membership data has to be converted over to go into their system. And we're in the middle of our membership season right now. Everybody is joining and renewing for the next 2 months in theory anyway. So I'm going to worry about it. I'm going to start the process, but I'm not going to get really into it. I'm not going to worry about it until like July. So that's where we are in that.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Once again, if there are any questions, put them in the chat because Debbie loves to chat back.
No, I'm really tired of talking about this.
Yeah, anyway.
Maybe I'm just tired of doing it.
Right, we're going to see what happens. That's kind of a play it month by month on what happens with Club Express. And Debbie will be up to date as needed on that. So that pretty much concludes all I have to say. Really, though, if there are any questions, let it be known. And I cannot thank the committee enough because Alice, Elizabeth, Sally all contributed, and Nell not only provided all the information we needed, but did a lot of the lead work in finding out updates on prices of stuff. And then Chris Garcia, can't thank her enough because she's always there for guidance and wisdom. So that's, I guess, concludes what I have to say.
Mary Kate, can you hear me?
I do hear you. I do hear you, Ann.
Well, we need a motion here to approve the projected budget.
Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm. So
do you want to call for that?
Okay, I will.
I'll move to accept the budget as presented. Peggy Durand.
This is Julie Rogers. I second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you then.
I'm losing volume.
Who second? It's Liz Riddle.
Okay.
Who second?
Julie Rogers.
Who second?
Julie Rogers seconded.
Julie Rogers second.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and is there any further discussion here?
Madam President, I have a question.
Sure.
Judy Telge, does this new proposed budget incorporate the association, the member association app? There was information that came out about that to incorporate that. Is that involved here?
On
where?
We'll have to explain.
I think that might be the membership part might be part of Club Express, but everything in the budget is what we think will happen. And I believe that was mentioned, but when I heard it mentioned, I thought it was part of Club Express, and that's what we're waiting to figure out all those little details.
Okay, that's fine because I think that was a really good addition if we could get that.
No, once we get our membership into Club Express, then it will just pay the national from there. Like we won't have to do that ourselves. It will every time somebody joins, national and state will just take their cuts.
Right.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And your membership, excuse me, your membership will be from the day you pay that year until the day you pay next year.
Right.
So
it'll be rolling. It will no longer be just like May or June. It'll be rolling whenever you start. Yeah. Which is great.
Good. Thank you.
All right, so we need a vote then to accept the proposed budget.
So all in favor?
Now, those in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Wave your hands.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries, and we go back to Julie Rogers, who's going to report on programs for the new year.
All right. Thank you, Mary Kay and everyone. Just keep your workbooks open. We're moving to page 7.
What page did you say, Julie?
Page 7. It'll be the next page after the budget. Thank you very much. I just want to start with a review of what is the League program. And we've been so blessed this year. We've been having the League of Women Voters Texas help us. And they provided their new guide to programs and advocacy. And so this is from that. League program is our education and advocacy platform to support League principles. Program includes both action based on our positions and principles and the study of public policy issues. State and national program planning is done in the fall of odd-numbered years in preparation for state and national conventions in the spring of even-numbered years. Program planning materials will be sent to us from the League of Women Voters Texas and the League of Women Voters National to facilitate the consideration of current program and to gather suggestions for new studies. That's why it's so important that part of our membership dues go to those organizations. Local league program planning is done annually before an annual meeting so we can present a proposed program for the year at our annual meeting, which you will find on page 7. That's our magic page tonight for programs of the workbook. So I just want to walk you through page 7 of the proposed program. You're gonna know, you need to know that there are 11 current local positions on page 16 and 17. So you're gonna have to go from page 7 to page 16 and 17. And these current positions need to be made more current. How's everybody doing? The proposed program is as listed. I'm going to go back to page 7. We had one suggestion for a proposed study. By bylaws, we need to put out a call for proposed study, and we fulfilled that. We had a wonderful suggestion from Alice Hawkins for a proposed study. You'll see it listed on your page 7. And it says, based on the content of the League of Women Voters Corpus Christi study, the DEI committee understands that lead poison impairs cognitive ability and that there is no recovery from lead damage. So therefore, I, Alice Hawkins, propose a study to further investigate and determine whether or not there is a nexus between the locations of lead-poisoned children in Corpus Christi and low performances in math and reading within the CCISD and surrounding districts. We really appreciated that proposal. If you've got your workbook open to page 7, you'll see that we not only appreciate it, but we recognize that it's a worthy and valuable study topic. But we as a board have recommended that further discussion and possible adoption of the study topic be taken up in the future. That's because the policy guide does permit that we take up further studies at our monthly meetings. And so we just need to finish up what we're still working on. We don't want to take away from the richness of that suggestion and the need for it. You'll see that under that, we have proposed topics for updates and advocacy. These are important because our priority positions are redistricting and voting rights. So I've recommended that we continue these topics and keep covering redistricting and voting rights, especially since redistricting will keep going until the fall, perhaps December. Our current local positions, again, they're going to be on page 16 and 17. They're outdated. We need to make them current. The board recommended that the adoption of proposed topics, which would be that we review current local positions and keep updating on our proposed topics, which would be voting rights, redistricting, and lead in our water. The proposed program then for 2021-22 is to review and update the local positions that have not been reviewed since 2015. This is important because positions are used for action. We will recruit speakers who can update and educate us on the topics of positions that need to be reviewed and affirmed by membership. We will be seeking help and feedback from members and will keep you updating on this project throughout the process. We also need member participation and leadership for our recently adopted local position on lead in our drinking water, which you will find on pages 18 to 20 of the workbook. Again, we will also have updates and advocacy on redistricting and voting rights, which includes having our second Saturday sessions when needed, advocating for fair maps and transparency in redistricting will continue for a while since there will be a special session. The next second Saturday sessions will be from 10 to 11 virtually on June 12th, July 10th, and August 14th, which is when the census data will be released. The board recommends adoption of the proposed topics and a review and update of local positions listed on page 16 to 17. And that is our proposed program for 2021 to 2022. And I think on the heels of our keynote speaker, it makes even more sense to me now.
All right, so that's our motion that's been.
Are there any
presented.
questions?
Was there a second, and then we'll have discussion? Is there a second to Julie's proposal motion?
Linda Snyder seconds.
Linda Snyder seconded. And now we're ready for discussion, Julie. Go ahead.
Well, I think we've got a lively group of people, and really what we need more than anything now and throughout the year is member participation and input. So do you have any questions? There's 11 current positions that need to be reviewed. That fits quite well into our calendar. And we would need members to help find speakers and to participate in this process.
Those in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed? No opposition. So the motion carries. And we'll move on. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you all.
All right. And moving along. Let's see, Anel, are you still there? Not Anel. Paula? No, Paula? Okay.
Nope. Yeah, I'm here.
So-
I'm here. Wait,
Oh, you are here.
I am here. What can I do for
Okay.
you?
Will you please pick up the discussion here then?
I
Okay.
We're on
believe
page-
we're
top of
looking
page 10.
to Sally
Yeah.
Ferris.
Let's move on. Before Paula, thank you always for your contributions. We're going to segue or move right into, we have a lot to be proud of for many reasons, but we adopted a local position this year, which I think you can use as a reference to why we need to check on the other local positions. And that was our lead in our drinking water study. And Sally Ferris is going to present the position statement to us.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Well, as you know, this spring we celebrate a milestone, reaching a position statement that came from your local lead study that began back in 2016. And so much credit goes to our new Vice President for Program, Julie Rogers. As a medical anthropologist, Julie saw value in the study, and she worked with both the committee and the Texas League to bring the facts and issues to you and brought us through a final consensus meeting. And as you've heard, consensus and advocacy are the bedrocks of league processes. So with Julie's help, we relaunched the effort after many months of languishing to succeed in turning rejection from the city of Corpus Christi into a supportive and collaborative lead test pilot program that Julie's going to talk to you about later. A lesson that we take from this and future studies, or we take for this and for future studies, is that when in doubt, go directly to the advocacy arm of the League of Women Voters and you'll get help. Here are a few points, a simple summary that will empower you to advocate for what came out of the lead study. And it goes like this. The League finds no public drinking water system in the state of Texas operates under a health-based standard for lead contamination. No amount of lead is safe for human consumption. Education and protective measures should target the most vulnerable populations: infants, children, pregnant, and nursing women. Children in Nueces County most exposed to lead poisoning reside in zip codes 78415 and 78380. Aside from drinking water, lead source data should address substandard housing, unremediated lead paint, and food. The utility action level, which is 15 parts per billion, is neither health-based nor protective of human health. It should be remediated. The League urges the City of Corpus Christi Water Department to perform further evaluation when tap levels exceed 5 parts per billion. Now, 5 parts per billion means 5 micrograms of lead per liter of water. That is the health-based, medically researched limit for lead in bottled water. The League supports notice to affected customers when burnout events pose a risk of releasing lead. And we recommend easy, affordable steps to reduce lead at the tap. And on behalf of what we have come to dub ourselves as the lead heads of the League of Women Voters Corpus Christi, we want to thank you, especially Julie and the board, for this opportunity to give a little recap at the closing of the year. Thanks again.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I'm kind of moved by the lead heads. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the Radium Girls, who unfortunately perished for their work in building things with radium, but our lead heads are going to save us. And that shows you what advocacy is all about. The other thing that shows you what advocacy is all about is the city reached out to us and asked us to be citizen scientists because they have a lead testing website. And before they launch it, people have been using it. And we need more members to use the lead testing pilot website as well. It's very, very important. I think what we've learned from tonight and from our history is advocacy is important, and action is what changes things. And when we have these opportunities to do what we are formed for, we have to participate. So if you haven't done this yet, you have got to get yourself and other members to visit the lead testing website. Now, unfortunately, because of the partisan atmosphere that we live in, there's a lot of skepticism. And there's nothing to be skeptical about the city asking us to do this. They genuinely want your feedback. They even said the good, the bad, the ugly. And we've given them all that. And they've made adjustments. We still have adjustments to be made. Like our position statement says, no level of lead is acceptable. But if we have to have a measurement, it has to be 5 parts per billion. We can't reach that if we don't have a dialogue. We can't have a dialogue if we don't participate. Sally's going to put the link, and she already has, into the chat. It's for our members. A lot of people don't do email. There's a lot of fatigue, and people might not be checking their email, and they might not see the voter, and they might not realize that we have this opportunity. So it's incumbent on everyone that's here tonight to make sure that they've registered and that you get other members to register. It costs $30 for each kit, and the city's paying for that, which in essence, of course, is us. But perhaps you don't need it because you live in a newer home. It doesn't mean that you can't go through the process. Just go through the process and don't do the testing. A lot of us do live in older homes and have gone through the testing. So make sure you do that. And I think Anel is waving her hand. Yes, and I'll go ahead, Anel.
You'll have to unmute though, Anel.
I'm sorry. I was holding down my space bar. I thought that would do it. There was a chat question, but I think it was to me personally and not everybody else, from Faye Crashaw, asking if this was available in Portland, or is it just the city of Corpus Christi?
Right now, it's just the city of Corpus Christi because of the work that the lead and our drinking water committee did. The Corpus Christi water utilities reached out to us. But because we have a position statement, it means we can advocate, and it doesn't mean, and it also means it could happen in Portland. We just need to start the dialogue with them. But right now it is only city of Corpus Christi water utilities. And I'd also like to ask Sally or Linda to respond to anything about the opportunity to be citizen scientists. We've been in a dialogue with the city about people who so far have submitted, and I can tell you, for me, it's been a really good experience. They're more than willing to listen to us on most everything. We still have some work to do.
One more. Two people posted that they think the website as typed into the chat box may be incorrect. One tried to link up and it said that was not available. Is that correct? Is that
Teresa fixed it. The one that Teresa put there works.
Thank you.
All right. Teresa fixed it. And we've got till May the 31st to participate in this. And then they're going to branch out to other folks. They've said probably city employees, which is really good. But the background to this is also, we had thought maybe a month was good for us and we would go till the 15th, but they've agreed to let us go till the 31st because we were able to make this announcement at our annual meeting and publish again in the Voter how important this is. So thank you all so much. I just think it's incredible that we've achieved this, and it shows you what all we're capable of, and it makes me very proud to be a part of this organization.
Okay, I think we're now ready for Paula. Are you done with the program presentation? Okay.
I think so. We got a big year ahead of us. Thank y'all.
All right, so voter services in brief. Dealing with the pandemic, we hosted virtual candidate forums. We printed and distributed voter guides to Nueces County locations accessible to the public. We directed voters to vote411.org and other online platforms such as the Secretary of State's website and Nueces County Clerk's website for election information. Also, Debbie kept everybody updated on social media. So thank you, Debbie. And then looking forward, in-person voter registration drives are starting again. If you're interested in becoming a deputy voter registrar, then please follow that process. Raul has put that information into the last voter. And we, as the voter services team, we're also exploring ways in which to combine in-person, virtual, and web-based platforms to reach high potential voters in the coming year. So there we go. Any questions? Anything? If not, we will go on.
If Sandra is not here, then Chris is going to do her report today.
Yep, go ahead but unmute.
Chris, you're up.
I know, I've got to unmute myself.
You're unmuted. Oh,
nope. Now you touched it again and muted yourself.
I did it.
Now I'm ready.
Oh, now it
okay.
It.
Sandra had misunderstood.
Is Sandra here?
Is Sandra here?
No.
Her birthday was a couple of days ago, and her family planned a dinner for Sandra this evening that coincided with our league meeting. So she regrets that she is probably enjoying a meal and not here. But here's her report. There are currently 112 active voting members of the league and 6 non-voting friends. Of the 112 active members, 14 have already renewed their membership for this coming year of 2021-2022. Our fiscal year begins June 1st, goes through May 31st, which means most of us are probably up for renewal, and that membership response needs to come from all of us in the coming weeks. In the past, most of the renewals were received at an actual in-person annual meeting event, which we've not had now for 2 years. But since we're on this virtual platform, Sandra wanted to encourage all of us to send in our renewals or go to the website, click on PayPal, whatever's easiest for you, and go ahead and get those renewal checks in to our treasurer. Sandra also reminds us that the state, national, and local league are in the process of converting to Club Express, which we've all heard about this evening. And that has lots of new features that we believe once we master will help every league do a better job. And that anniversary date is really important as a new aspect of that. Madam President, that concludes Sandra's report as presented to me.
And this is Catherine. Just really quickly, Lois Huff has asked me to put in just a few words before we move out of reports from the board about the Centennial event. And that's going to be on August the 26th of 2021. And so her committee is still in preliminary planning for that, checking out locations and that sort of thing. But we have a really short compressed window of time to get this event, this much needed event, up and going. So please, if you, I'm sure she would appreciate any assistance and help in her committee. So those of you who are here, please think about stepping up and helping her with that, get that off the, up and going. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Catherine, I think you're still up.
Well, we were going to have a few words by the president. Can you hear me?
Yes, and so I think,
Catherine, if you have something you want to say first, then please do that.
No, I can read the script though. I can do that for you, and I would love to do that. So, President Ann and League members, we've successfully finished the business portion of the 76th annual meeting. Many thanks to everyone participating tonight. It is now my pleasure to call on our retiring President, Ann Stewart, for her final remarks. Ann, please share your remarks with us.
Well, I have just a few things I want to say. This has been a long meeting. It's been so worthwhile. It's been a terrific reporting and brings us forward with great expectations for 2 more outstanding years. And we have outstanding leadership stepping up, and I know it will be a wonderful time. In terms of ideas that I want to share or bring our focus to, I've thought about it a lot, and I just want to, I'll keep this very brief, but I want us to stay focused on the value and work of devoting ourselves to the development of character within our members and within our reputation as an organization. Character and respect. And if I took more time, I would read everybody America the Beautiful, because I think our country is beautiful. And we have to work at keeping it that way. Everything good that you all are is just essential to our area's growth and development and the success of the organization. So please give great respect to everyone as you can. And please look at the character, not everything else that's being presented to us to look at and base our opinions and decisions on. Look at the character and character development, and look at the beauty within each member and each potential member. If we can build on the beauty of everyone in our city and state and our nation, then we will surely be a most successful organization. It's been wonderful being your president, and I'm delighted with all the acquaintances I've made and the opportunities to work with so many different people. So with that, I will just say thank you very much for all that you are and do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so very much. So now, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Corpus Christi, I want to thank you for your leadership during the past 2 years. 2 years that included glorious celebration of the rights of women to vote, but also the trials and tribulations of the pandemic that swept upon us with a grim ferocity. Your inclusiveness and openness throughout these times enable us to work together and reach consensus on several issues. As mementos for you and appreciation of your leadership, we offer these small tokens. I'm going to share a screen with, hopefully, screen share, I hope it works. Debbie? Debbie Noble created this montage of moments from your presidency that demonstrates your positive and joyful engagement in your work for the League. I think that's absolutely lovely. You will
It's
be
not
receiving.
showing.
We're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it? Okay. All right. I thought it would screen share and it didn't. Okay, my bad.
Be sure to hit on share screen once you've got the picture.
Okay. I don't think it's going to let me do that.
Let me see if I can get it.
Sorry.
Wouldn't you know?
I've lost the image now.
Well, it will get to her shortly.
Okay.
Don't worry, I can't find it either.
I'm so sorry. A comedy of errors on my part today. Now, in particular, Anne, I dropped by and had a lovely conversation with you this morning. And during that conversation, or at the end of that conversation, I gave you a very small package that I said, do not open. Like, do not pass go, do not open until this evening's meeting. So now, I ask you, oh, there it is. Thank you, Debbie. Let's look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? It is just so a lovely, lovely capture of.
I particularly like that it has a picture of you and Anne as the outgoing and the incoming president.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? I hadn't noticed that.
That's lovely.
So as I said, Debbie is having this framed, and as soon as that framing takes place, we will make sure that you receive that. And so again, thank you very much. So now, if you would, open that small package. We wanted something that is representative of your personal flair, as well as your support of the call to empower voters and defend democracy. So we need to switch to Anne.
Well, Anne has managed to leave that package in another area than where she is sitting and participating in this meeting. So I will speak at the retreat about my thanks, because I know it will be exquisite because of the people presenting it to me, but I cannot tell you about the specifics and can't show it to anyone today. There we are.
I will just say this, I let the cat out of the bag then, because this is a scarf that commemorates all those women who came before us to fight for and to win our right to vote. And it was commissioned, this is a hand-printed, screen-printed scarf that was commissioned by a sister league in Pennsylvania as part of their centennial celebration. And when I saw that, I thought, this encapsulates who Ann Stewart is. And so it's waiting for you to open, to wear, to hang on to as a memento of your time serving as president of the league. So anyway, it meant a lot to me to find that and be able to say, you know, I think, and present it to the board and say, you know, don't you think this would make a lovely present for them? Then I would like to apologize profoundly that I was tardy. I had it in my calendar and in my brain, but not obviously in the agenda that the meeting started at 5:30. So I don't know that I'm officially elected, and I don't know where. And then Judge Banyalis, I do swear to uphold everything. So I hope that I hope that makes it official. But I'm deeply embarrassed and very profoundly.
I heard you.
Thank you, Debbie.
There's the scarf.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Come on.
I heard you, and you were sworn in.
Thank you, Judge. Debbie, would you put that up again if you have it? I'd like for everyone to see it. I just think it's amazingly beautiful. It has the names and of all of the women who contributed to the effort to give women the rights to vote. And I think you have the panache and to wear that if you so choose.
I surely will, and I'll treasure it. Yes. Thank you so much.
So we are now, this has been a long meeting, I understand. So I need to ask if there is any other further business to come before the league at the 76th annual meeting. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Liz Riggle makes a motion to adjourn.
Do Nell we have Neal seconds.
Okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion to adjourn passes and we stand adjourned. Thank you very, very much again for participating in this 76th annual meeting. Fantastic. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good night, y'all. Congratulations, Catherine.
Thank you. I hope I can be trustworthy. I'm missing the. Well, at the height of our viewership, I think we had 41 people.
Awesome.
I think that's a good attendance.
And we had several most recently joined members as well.
Yes. Fantastic. That's so good to hear.
I was circling throughout the entire, thank you for Anel, because she sent me a membership list and I was busy circling as we were talking, as people were popping up. So hopefully I have everybody. So we'll
Great job.
take it from there. But y'all have a pleasant evening, and it was great seeing y'all, and we'll visit later. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks
Bye.
so much.
Bye, y'all. You're amazing.
Wow.
Congratulations.
All of you are amazing. Thank you. Peggy, I think I'm beat red. Oh. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and hit end so I can get the Okay. recording started. Sounds good. Thank
Take
you,
care.
Anel. You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.